If you're new to Dungeons & Dragons, you've never played before, and you're wondering where to start, you might ask yourself, should I buy the D&D starter set? Yes. Yes, you should. They retail at about half the price of the player's handbook and include a short 32-page booklet with all the rules you need, as well as an adventure, monsters, pre-made characters, and dice. It's as good an introduction to D&D as any written booklet could be, and they all succeed to varying degrees. This one, the one with the green dragon on the cover, is my favorite. But if your local retailer only has one of these, they're all good. If this video was recommended to you and you got a little curious, that's the answer right there at the start of the video. They're all good. Wait, did you search for this video? Why? If you search for this video, then the answer is no. You are almost certainly not the target audience. The target audience is somebody walking down the aisle in Target and seeing this Dungeons & Dragons box for $15.99 and thinking, isn't that the Critical Role thing I heard of? And they buy it on impulse for themselves or some nerd they know because, why not? So if you search for this video, you're wondering one of two things. Either you're wondering if those $15 are worth it, and if that is you, that means you're trying to run D&D as cheaply as you can. And I don't think you need the starter set, or any other D&D supplements. You can run D&D for free, I have a video on that. Or maybe you're here because you want a detailed review from a D&D super nerd about all 3 5e starter sets. In which case, hello, that's what this video is about. Welcome to Mystic Arts, where a veteran DM admits to buying all 3 starter sets for some reason. My name is Daði, I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been dungeon mastering for 10 years. So what is the function of a starter set? I think it's advertising, getting the game in front of people who aren't nerds. Essentially what the suits call customer acquisition. Like I said, you're walking down an aisle in Target, you see the box, you see the low price tag, maybe they buy it, maybe they even give it a go. But they also serve another purpose. They can be someone's first introduction into the hobby. That part I'm more skeptical of. I don't know that you can explain the game fully with nothing but text. Loads of RPGs have examples of play, maybe that works better. Like Chapter 1 in the new 2024 Player's Handbook. It has running examples of play and it tags everything and explains the rules. I think that's probably better than anything in the starter sets. But even then, I have a hard time considering that a perfect solution. Most people would still struggle with what it is until they saw something like an actual play on YouTube. By the way, none of these box sets include a single example of play unless you count one exchange at the start of each of these rulebooks. And in general, these adventures are no less complicated to run than actual published hardcover adventures. Most of them have a brief section at the start explaining a little bit until they just leave the DM to fend for themselves. However, if the alternative is to buy 3 core rulebooks and a published adventure and some dice and then just kind of wing it, the starter sets begin to look way more appealing. The 2014 starter set features this fantastic piece of art on the cover. It's Venomfang, a dragon featured in the adventure. The box itself is light and flimsy. Inside you'll find 5 things. This simplified 32-page rulebook, the adventure, the 5 pre-made character sheets, a set of dice, and this little white piece of cardboard designed to make the box appear fuller than it actually is. Like a bag of potato chips, this box is mostly air. I wonder if it's because otherwise it'll be only about the thickness of a hardcover book, but I'd much rather see this box stuffed with goodies of some kind. The pre-generated character sheets are good, they make it much easier for a new player to jump right in. But there's no real guidance on how to read the sheet, where the numbers come from, what they mean. It's kind of up to the players to just figure out. And it feels like a missed opportunity to have no rules of character creation in this box. The adventure, the stat blocks, there's enough stuff in here to run a bunch of different adventures, but you just can't unless you keep reusing the pre-made characters. I would have liked to see character creation separated into its own manual, however. I think it would have been too much as just a part of the starter rulebook. I will say this one bit from the getting started section caught my eye and I think it's good advice. Someone needs to be the dungeon master for your first play experience. Since you're reading this, you're a good candidate to be the DM.
A new hand touches the beacon.
Dang it! Lost Mine of Phandelver is the starter adventure found in the box set, stuffed in among all the air, and it is, dare I say, the best adventure published by WotC for 5th edition. It's got everything you'd want from a starter adventure. There's a good hook that'll work for any of the characters your players might make. Even the edgelord murder hobo is gonna get motivated by money. Only for them to be hoodwinked into the rest of the adventure. By the way, if you intend to play these adventures, I should say, spoilers ahead. Throughout Lost Mine of Phandelver, you are going to fight goblins, hobgoblins, bugbears, orcs, zombies, ogres, aberrations, evil wizards, beholderkin, undead, giant spiders, a dragon, and even an owlbear.
Owlbears!
There's a miniature version of the whole monster manual in the back of this book. And as far as an aid for new DMs on how to design adventures going forward, the plot structure is brilliant. You start with an ambush, which is immediately followed by a choice. Go to town, or follow the goblins back to their lair. While in town, you'll hear about loads of rumors for new adventures, setting up Chapter 3's sandbox structure, while also pointing you back to the Goblin Trail. And then everything mentions this goblin castle at the end of Chapter 3, which in turn then takes the players into the final dungeon in Chapter 4. Here is a fan-made flowchart. Most of the official adventures are not this sandboxy, not even the ones that pretend to be, and a player playing this adventure will fall in love with the game. However, if you bought the starter set, and you're the new hand that touched the beacon, then you're also a new dungeon master, and this is a lot to take in. This is not a particularly easy adventure to run. It could be structured to become one, maybe with a flowchart at the start about the overall structure of the adventure, some guidance on the designer's intent here and there, how to run certain sections, but you really do need to read the full adventure front to back once or twice to get a complete understanding. It's not ideal. But again, I think it's genuinely the best 5e adventure, and the author Richard Baker also worked on Red-Handed Doom, which is an amazing adventure for 3rd edition that I also loved running. Those two adventures made me fall in love with pre-written modules. My only quibble is that the iconic picture of the dragon Venomfang on the cover is a little bit misleading. He's barely in the adventure, and when the players are likeliest to fight him, they're all going to be level 3, and it would be fatal to fight him at that point. Venomfang is mostly just set up for Horde of the Dragon Queen, a different adventure, and it would require everyone making first level characters again. And there are no rules for character creation. At that point, you'll need to invest in the 3 core rulebooks. And as a note, Lost Mine of Phandelver takes you to 5th level, and I don't think there's a 5e adventure ready to accept 5th level characters just coming into it sight unseen. I mean, a few come to mind, maybe Storm King's Thunder if you start in Rumblings, or Descent into Avernus if you hop right into Elturel, or Curse of Strahd if you skip Death House and the player characters just start a bit beefy in Barovia. But all of that requires a lot of faff from the presumably brand new Dungeon Master. I think this is a point where the 5e ecosystem just kind of failed new players. I mean, loads of people became DMs out of these box sets, but loads of those DMs also bounced off into other systems. But all of that aside, I successfully managed to hook a group of players with this adventure, so maybe it's not a big deal. Then again, I had been running for a few years at that point. With that experience on me, I was able to run this adventure basically right out of the book at the table. But maybe that's a bit more advanced dungeon mastery than should be expected of new players. The D&D Essentials kit came out in 2019 and intended to remedy some of the flaws of the starter set. This box is considerably heavier than the starter set because there's no white bit of cardboard filling the box with air. Inside there are loads of cards for NPCs, magic items, conditions, and initiative trackers. This I think is a huge improvement. Some of this stuff I don't exactly know how to use, like the NPC cards, but I love the idea of handing a new player a magic item by literally handing them a card. Brilliant. Condition cards are a good choice too, but all of the conditions are on the back of the rulebook, so I don't know, maybe that could have been used for something better. I struggle to think of what though. The dice set is also nicer. It's got 2 d20s, which is an obvious choice in retrospect for a game with advantage and disadvantage. And a DM screen. It's got a DM screen. I can't believe the starter set didn't include one. How am I supposed to hide my notes? Or my lack of notes? This set also came with an extended 64-page rulebook, which includes rules for character creation. Great! But I wonder if a bigger rulebook is more daunting for new players. Like, do I have to read all this just to play? But instead there are no pre-generated characters. You have to make the characters yourselves. You have to get a group together for an evening to sit around the table and just make characters and not play D&D. I don't think that's great. Character creation is fun, but it's not fun to learn, and it's not fun if you've never played the game before, ever. It's kind of just arbitrary. You're picking things at random. Would it have killed them to include the 5 pre-gens from last time? It's literally just 5 pieces of paper. I also would have preferred if character creation was in its own booklet. That way it just feels a bit more optional and the rulebook isn't as thick, but that probably would have cost more, so I get it. The Adventure Dragon of Icespire Peak, however, I think is a bit of a downgrade. But there were some improvements. Like the starter set, there is a dragon on the cover. He's called Cryovane. But unlike the starter set, he is actually the main bad guy of the adventure. Well, sort of. Everything in the adventure is the fault of Cryovane moving into this keep, forcing the local monsters to relocate into the hills and into the forest. It's like trickle-down monster chaos. Cryovane is a constant threat in the adventure. There's a table at the start where you roll on to randomly determine if Cryovane comes along to pester the player characters. Good stuff. What's not working, however, is the quest board structure. The adventure is basically so that you keep going back to town to grab a new quest from a quest board set up by a literal faceless quest giver town master, and you never get to meet him. And then you get the quest and you go out to adventure with a capital A. This explicitly quest board structure relies on the players picking new quests based on brief descriptions, and then the DM just has to run them, unsure of what's coming next. Only there isn't an intersecting flowchart of stories like the one that should have been printed for Lost Mines of Phandelver. There's just a sort of tree of fairly standard quests, and choosing where to go next isn't really a game, it's kind of just vibes. The layout here deserves a shout out though. Almost every quest is formatted to be on a single spread, map and key together. Good stuff. And if they ever run long, go beyond that spread, they're designed to be exactly 2-page spreads. Great, fantastic, love that. I am a little stung by the lack of iconic monsters. Lost Mine had such a good rogues gallery that's mostly gone here in favor of more specific monsters that I think are a bit wasted on new players. There was this idea during the marketing in the Essentials kit that Dragon of Icespire Peak would make a good partner to run alongside Lost Mines of Phandelver, like literally at the same time. It's sort of insane, but I think it's a great idea. The two adventures would work excellently together, and I think it'd be really fun to introduce a new group of players to the game that way. Only this is the starter set and the Essentials kit. It's for beginners, including beginner DMs. Yes, hello. Welcome to D&D. Here are 2 box sets. I assume you know they're entirely compatible based on some marketing we released. Just mix them together and wing it. What? I don't get it. Now if you're a newbie and you're watching me whinge on about old box sets, here's my actual recommendation. Buy this set. It's the best bang for buck, and you can claim Lost Mines of Phandelver for free on D&D Beyond, link in the description. In 2022, D&D replaced the starter set with a new one, this time with a huge blue dragon on the cover. This new starter set rolls back a lot of the improvements made by the D&D Essentials kit. We're back to only 6 dice, no advantage die, no DM screen, no cards, no character creation, but 2 old friends return, the pre-gens, yay, and the thin white cardboard that fills the box with air. You might argue that this starter set is replacing the old one, and that old one didn't have all those bells and whistles, and I shouldn't be expecting those kinds of luxuries in the starter set, but I don't know, that's such an odd argument from my perspective, because the idea behind the Essentials kit was that it's this partner to the old starter set, but that doesn't work at all when this brand new adventure isn't connected to Phandelver at all, and you can't use the quests from the Essentials kit or Cryovane. And because it's so separate, I feel like this box should have included all those things the Essentials kit added. I will say, credit where it's due, the pre-gens here are fantastic. They include all the rules needed right on the sheet. Instead of complex game rule language like listing an attack as battle axe +5, 1d8 +3 slashing, it explains the whole idea of attacking and damage all right there on the sheet. It's brilliant. Also, the pre-mates come with this excellent black and white art on the back. I think it really helps communicate the vision of the characters, especially to new players. All the rules, including the rules for leveling up, are printed on the back of the character sheet. It's brilliant. All starter sets should have that moving forward. The rulebook's back to being very thin, which I do like, but character creation is gone again, so there is that. And the rogues gallery is fairly thin. There's no goblinoids, orcs, ogres, or aberrations. It's a bit dull, really. One clever thing done by this starter set is the addition of online tools and videos explaining everything in QR codes on the box, which I think is smart. It's good to support people who learn better by watching. Though I don't know how many people actually ended up using that feature. If you bought this starter set and tried it, feel free to let me know. The included adventure, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, is fine. I think it's a bit hollow, but I bet that's because I've been playing this game for 10 years. It consists of a small hub, Dragon's Rest, small enough that I think a new DM can easily wrap their head around it, 2 adventure locations, and once both are complete, the adventure sort of reveals itself, and the players get the privilege of going in the final dungeon. There's really nothing to write home about here, but maybe that's fine. Unlike the other 2 adventures, I certainly can't argue that a DM would struggle running this. The adventure includes this spread at the start, probably the best one out of the 3 adventures so far, which really outlines the job of the DM properly, with a few tips, some information, and most importantly, a bit of affirmation. To quote, "Dungeon masters are fallible, just like everyone else, and even experienced DMs make mistakes. And as long as your players are having fun, everything will be just fine." That's good advice. And to all the players watching this video, when was the last time you gave your DM a hug? Or said thanks for the session, or what a lovely shirt you're wearing? I'll add that each adventure location is really digestible. It's only a handful of pages, and the 48-page adventure as a whole can be read in an afternoon and jumped into without much forethought. And the first encounter does a bit of work to help you along, just like the one in Phandelver did. My only real gripe is that the cover illustrations are just lies. There's a huge blue dragon on the cover, and it doesn't appear in the adventure. All there is a little baby version of a blue dragon, and the adventure kind of admits this because there is art of that baby dragon, and it does not look as big as this. And the cover of the adventure itself is no better. It's got these 2 massive dragons duking it out, but that can't happen in the adventure. It just is not there. I guess that isn't a big deal, but the conclusion is so small compared to the scale of the cover art. I'd recommend you don't show your players the art because they're going to get let down by the smaller scale of the adventure. I love small scale adventures, but don't sell me on something big and just fail to deliver. I also take issue with the character motivation presented. All the heroes are on this island for what is basically fantasy therapy. They all have some trauma from their past and they're on this island to deal with it. And some of that results in quests, but some of it results in these words of wisdom from the main quest giver. I don't know, role-playing all that feels like a big ask for someone who's still confused by which bit of plastic is the one used for attacks. I prefer the way Lost Minds motivates you by gold, because players who want to roleplay fantasy therapy are going to bring that energy all on their own. I've played with plenty of theater kids and they don't need the adventure's help to date the innkeeper or cry about their feelings. But there are gamers coming into this hobby that are motivated by crushing monsters, and I think this heavy roleplay buy-in is going to put them off. The adventure is short. It only goes to level 3, which at first I thought it was too little, but then I thought better of it. Level 3 is a great stopping point. We tend to talk about the first 3 levels of D&D like the tutorial levels, and most published hardcover adventures have a dungeon at the start specifically designed to get you from level 1 to level 3 with little connection to the rest of the plot. This is way better for the 5e ecosystem. Finishing this adventure and then funneling the heroes into a published adventure, I think would be fairly easy. You just skip that tutorial dungeon they all have, and they all start at level 3. No notes on that, good design. All of these adventures are set in the Forgotten Realms, and they have a column at the start telling new DMs about the setting briefly enough to impart 2 things. 1, the setting doesn't matter for the adventure, and 2, here's a bit of setting lore you should know anyway. Can't these adventures just be setting agnostic? I remember being really put off by that when I first came into the hobby, and when I came to 5e, despite the fact that at that point I had had several years of running Pathfinder on my resume. My fear was largely that a player was going to dictate some bit of lore to me based off of their experience playing a game, watching a movie, or whatever. It terrified me. Seriously, make them setting agnostic. Stormwreck Isle is on an island that could be anywhere. Why bother telling me it's in the same world as Baldur's Gate? Karlach isn't even here, what's the point? There's already so much baggage in this game. Ability scores come in pairs, creatures all have alignment, and then there's these classes, and they don't mean the same thing as they do in World of Warcraft. Everything is then set in the same world as other games and movies. I know people, more than a few, who bought the starter set and never started. Many even tried reading it, just couldn't figure it out. They were stumped. I was once even asked to come run someone's starter set for them, after I'd already run some homebrew stuff for them. They knew enough to start, but they were terrified anyway. I have run games for people and offered them all the requisite material, and they never get started running the game. Surely we can do a better job of onboarding people. But I don't know. I'll just have to keep trying. All I can think to say is that doing it wrong at the start is how you learn things. My friends and I just went by rules as vibes for years. Nobody's gonna know. The rules police isn't gonna come after you. Even I'm still learning the game. It's a huge game. You can't memorize the entire thing. Ultimately, each of these box sets is far better at introducing a new player to the game than the 3 core rulebooks were. The 2024 Player's Handbook is gunning for that ease of access though, especially with Chapter 1 in there. And if you're one of those people who's thinking about buying the Essentials kit and the starter set, you might just be better off buying the new Player's Handbook. I don't know. Even still, the onboarding in the presented adventures is better, though it seems to me that the new starter set's unique value proposition has more to do with it being better bang for buck than it does with it being easier to understand. They include the rules for players, dungeon masters, and adventure, dice, and in the case of the Essentials kit, even a DM screen. For a fraction of the price it would cost for you to buy those things separately. But when it comes to being an on-ramp, I think there's some good, some bad across the board. Lost Mine of Phandelver is a brilliant adventure, but it seems like a big ask for new DMs. Dragon of Icespire Peak's structure may help new DMs, but at the cost of verisimilitude. It leaves me feeling artlessly detached from the storytelling possibilities of D&D. Dragons of Stormwreck Isle feels hollow compared to the rest, but it's probably the easiest to run. No matter which box you pick, I think they're all affordable, each with some strengths and some flaws, but they're all worth it. Throughout this exercise of going through all the starter sets, I keep thinking about the starter set announced for next fall, and wondering if they'll manage to make a value proposition as good as the Essentials kit, but pair it with the ease of access of the starter sets. And it wouldn't hurt if the adventure is written by Richard Baker. But to summarize, if you're here because you search for this review, I think you need to get out of your own head, pick a damn date, and run the game. Find like 2 nerds, hand them character sheets, and tell them a kobold spots them and runs away to a random temple to go get the others. Roll initiative and go from there. You don't need the starter sets. You can save those $15 for Chipotle and you'd even have enough for extra guac. Just tell yourself you're running next Friday, come hell or high water, and then do it. You can run D&D with the free rules. They're all hyperlinked and available on D&D Beyond. You can make your own content or use the starter set as a helping hand. Like I said earlier, Lost Mine of Phandelver is probably 5e's best adventure. And if you like it, there's a whole hardcover adventure called Phandelver and Below, and it carries on from where the adventure leaves off. All that said, I wonder if the best way to start isn't by picking up a 1-page dungeon and using the quick build rules on D&D Beyond and go from there. I have a video on exactly that. Frankly, you've got no excuse. And that's where we're going to pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video useful, let me know in the comments or by hitting the like button. And if you want to see more like it, try subscribing. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.